Commander Arik Hale stood on the observation deck of the human colony ship Endurance, staring out at the swirling blue and purple nebula that stretched endlessly across the void. Space had always felt both beautiful and lonely to him, but today it felt heavier than ever. Today the Valorians were arriving. The Valorians were one of the most mysterious alien species known to humans. They were tall, their skin shimmered with shifting colors, and each of their 4 eyes could move independently, giving them a constantly calculating expression. They were precise, careful, and exceptionally proud. No human had ever truly made them nervous, and yet Arik sensed that something was about to change. His crew bustled around him, preparing for the diplomatic reception, their movements precise but tense. Arik adjusted his uniform, smoothing the creases with a hand that betrayed more anxiety than he cared to admit. He had negotiated with alien species before, but the Valorians were different. Their patience was legendary, their diplomacy flawless. But their subtlety could also mask something dangerous. The ship's intercom crackled, and a calm female voice announced, "Delegation arrival in 5 minutes." Arik's chest tightened. He had studied every detail of Valorian customs, their gestures, their speech patterns, even the tiny shifts in skin color that indicated emotion. Yet nothing in his training prepared him for the feeling that crept up his spine. The kind of feeling that whispered, "This time it's different." The docking bay doors opened with a quiet hiss, revealing the delegation. 4 Valorians stepped forward, their tall forms gliding almost effortlessly. Their eyes scanned the room, flicking over the humans, lingering on Arik. A slight shimmer in their skin caught the light, shifting between soft lavender and pale blue. To anyone else, it would have seemed beautiful. To Arik, it felt like a warning. "Welcome to the Endurance," Arik said, his voice steady even as his heart beat faster. "I am Commander Arik Hale. We are honored to host you." The Valorian ambassador inclined her head in a slow, deliberate motion. Her 4 eyes focused on him, assessing every tiny detail. Her voice, when she spoke, was melodic and precise, but there was an edge of curiosity, almost like she was testing him. "Commander Hale, we are grateful for your invitation. Humans are always unpredictable." The words hit him like a small shock. Unpredictable. Humans were proud of their adaptability, of their courage, of their emotional honesty. But to hear an alien, one of the most disciplined species in the galaxy, describe humans that way, it stirred something in him, a strange mixture of pride and irritation. "Unpredictable can be effective," Arik replied with a faint smile. He extended his hand in a traditional human gesture of trust. The ambassador hesitated for a moment before mirroring it. Their hands met, and for the briefest instant he felt the strange energy between human and alien, the unspoken tension of 2 species trying to measure each other. Arik's crew watched silently. They had been briefed to maintain calm, to follow Valorian protocols precisely, but even they sensed it, the electric charge in the room, the subtle shift in the air. As the delegation moved deeper into the observation deck, Arik noticed the small details that most humans would miss. The faint quiver in the ambassador's skin, the way her eyes darted almost imperceptibly, the minute pauses before she spoke. Aliens were careful, meticulous, and unshakable, or at least that was the legend. Arik straightened his posture. "I understand your customs. I respect them. But I must be honest. We humans do things differently. We speak with our hearts even if it surprises others. I hope that is acceptable." The ambassador tilted her head. The shimmer in her skin deepened briefly, almost imperceptible, but Arik noticed. There was curiosity there, yes, but also hesitation. The Valorians were calculating him, testing the limits of human behavior. For a moment, Arik imagined the stories that would be told centuries later. The human who faced the Valorians without fear, the human who dared to be real. A quiet smile tugged at his lips. He didn't fully understand what would happen next, but one thing was clear. Today, humans would show something no alien had ever truly faced before. The Valorian delegation came to a halt near the observation window. Their eyes followed the nebula, and a faint ripple of color ran across their skin. Arik felt it, a silent acknowledgement. The negotiation had begun. Not with words, not with offers, but with the subtle, undeniable truth of human presence. And deep inside him a fire ignited, a quiet, simmering certainty. This meeting would not be ordinary. This would be a test. A battle of spirit, courage, and honesty, and Commander Arik Hale was ready. The conference hall of the Endurance was vast, its walls shimmering with soft white light. The Valorian delegation sat across from Commander Arik Hale and his human crew. On the table between them lay holographic displays of trade routes, energy reserves, and diplomatic agreements. Everything appeared orderly, calm, and professional, but underneath tension rippled like an invisible current. Arik studied the Valorians carefully. Their four eyes moved independently, scanning the room, reading every gesture, every subtle twitch and posture. Their skin shimmered faintly, shifting colors with emotion, but they kept it carefully controlled. Humans were straightforward. Aliens were intricate, like puzzles that took centuries to solve. Arik had trained for situations like this, but nothing could prepare him for the weight of alien scrutiny that seemed to press down on his shoulders. The first few hours of negotiation were frustrating. Every proposal Arik made was met with hesitation. Each suggestion required layers of explanation, multiple clarifications, and subtle pauses that felt like hours. The Valorians spoke with precision, measured their words, and weighed every syllable as if it carried the fate of galaxies. Arik's patience began to fray. He had been careful, polite, and respectful, but the aliens' endless caution wore on him. Every second felt like a test. He noticed the smallest shifts in their skin, slight darkening or flickering like ripples in water. These were signs of tension, subtle hints that something in the Valorians' carefully controlled minds was unsettled. One of Arik's junior officers leaned slightly forward and whispered, "Sir, they are observing you very closely. They haven't seen anyone behave this way." Arik smiled faintly, though tension tightened his jaw. "Good," he muttered under his breath. Humans had a strange power aliens often underestimated: the raw honesty of emotion. Aliens avoided direct confrontation. They relied on control, subtlety, and logic. Humans could change the balance simply by being real, by showing what they truly felt, even if it made others uncomfortable. As the hours passed, small conflicts began to appear. The Valorians balked at minor compromises, questioned simple arrangements, and asked countless technical questions that seemed unnecessary. Every time Arik answered, they responded with slow, deliberate hesitation. Each pause tested his resolve. Each delay felt like a challenge, almost personal. Arik could feel frustration bubbling inside him. He rubbed his forehead and let out a sigh loud enough for the delegation to hear. 1. Valorian's eyes flickered with a shade darker, almost like they noticed the first cracks in his calm exterior. Arik leaned back in his chair and spoke firmly, voice steady, but tinged with irritation. "We have come a long way to find common ground. I do not want endless delays over details that can be resolved fairly." The room went silent for a heartbeat. The Valorians exchanged glances. Even humans at the table felt the tension rise. Arik noticed that their skin shimmered faster now, colors shifting in subtle patterns, revealing a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. Something about his tone, about the honesty in his frustration, had affected them. He realized then what was happening. Humans expressed emotion freely. Anger, frustration, determination, these were not weaknesses, they were tools. Aliens, especially Valorians, were trained to avoid emotion, to control it, to hide it. They were unprepared for someone who did not pretend. Someone who was real, even when it was uncomfortable. Arik leaned forward, hands gripping the edge of the table. "I want clarity," he said, voice firmer. "I want honesty. I do not want games. We either negotiate like equals or we walk away." The Valorian ambassador paused, her four eyes narrowing slightly. Her skin flickered like a wave, changing from soft blue to muted violet. A whisper passed among the delegation, subtle, almost inaudible to humans, but Arik's trained ears caught it. He is, different. Arik could feel the room shifting around him. The subtle signs were there. The Valorian's hesitation, their quick glances, the almost imperceptible step back taken by one of the younger delegates. He realized he had hit a nerve. The power was simple, almost shocking in its clarity. Humans were direct. Humans showed what they felt. Aliens, for all their intelligence, could not always handle that. Arik understood now that negotiation was not just about words or treaties. It was about presence, about spirit, about courage to stand openly and honestly. He straightened, letting his frustration show just enough to signal seriousness. "We are here to make this work," he said, eyes locking on the Valorian ambassador. "But I will not be ignored. I will not be delayed unnecessarily. This is important for both our species, and I expect respect for the time and effort we have invested." The Valorians stiffened. Their skin shimmered darker. Their four eyes locked on him in ways that were almost uncomfortable to watch. Arik could feel the subtle trembling in the room. They were cautious, careful, but now uncertainty had crept in. For the first time, Arik felt the quiet thrill of advantage. Humans were not supposed to be predictable. They were not supposed to be tamed. And right now, the Valorians were beginning to see that truth, even if they didn't yet understand it. The negotiations had dragged on for hours. Yet the Valorians seemed to be moving at a pace that defied human patience. Every proposal Commander Arik Hale made was met with careful deliberation, endless questions, and subtle delays. The humans at the table shifted uncomfortably, sensing the growing tension, but Arik remained focused, though his chest tightened with frustration. He had studied the Valorians for years. Their four eyes, each moving independently, could detect deceit, hesitation, or weakness almost instantly. Their skin shimmered with emotion, though they tried to hide it, and their speech was slow, precise, and deliberate. Yet Arik noticed something new today. Subtle flickers of uncertainty, tiny ripples that betrayed unease. Arik's hand tapped the edge of the table, a rhythm born of impatience. "We have invested time, energy, and trust into this negotiation," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Yet we seem to be going in circles. We need clarity. Now." One of the Valorian delegates tilted her head, the shimmering of her skin deepening to a faint violet. Her four eyes focused on him intently. The pause stretched uncomfortably long. Arik could feel the pressure, the invisible weight of their judgment. But unlike the aliens, he did not shrink under it. Instead, he leaned forward, letting his presence fill the room. Humans were simple in their honesty. They did not pretend, did not manipulate in quiet subtlety. They showed what they felt, and right now Arik felt something he could no longer contain. A flicker of anger surged through him. Not wild, not uncontrolled, but sharp, deliberate, and real. He spoke, voice rising just enough to draw attention without breaking decorum. "We cannot continue like this. I have tried patience, I have tried courtesy, and yet we are stalled at every turn." The Valorians stiffened, their skin darkened, rippling between shades of blue and purple, and one of the younger delegates inched slightly backward, as if sensing an invisible force emanating from him. Arik's crew exchanged quick glances, sensing the same strange effect he felt. Arik took a slow breath. He had been careful, polite, and measured for hours. Now he let his raw human honesty show. "Enough," he said, voice low but carrying undeniable authority. "I am done with delays. I am done with endless hesitation. Now I'm really getting annoyed." The words hung in the air like a physical presence. The room went silent. The Valorians froze, their four eyes locked on him, some widening slightly. Their skin shimmered in rapid, jagged pulses, a clear sign of internal alarm. The quiet whisper of a council among themselves spread through the delegation, subtle, tense, urgent. Arik did not smile. He did not threaten. He simply leaned forward, letting the weight of his words rest fully in the room. Humans did not bluff. When a human spoke honestly, with emotion behind the words, it carried a power that even the most disciplined alien minds could not easily resist. The Valorian ambassador's melodic voice trembled slightly, though she maintained her composure. "Commander, your expression is unusual. Your emotion, it is co-direct." Arik's eyes softened, but his tone remained firm. "Yes, it is direct. I am human. We speak what we feel. We do not hide it. I want honesty, and I will not accept games or unnecessary delays." He could feel the change in the room immediately. The younger delegates shuffled uncomfortably. Their shimmering skin reflected tension, curiosity, and perhaps fear. Aliens prided themselves on precision, control, and intellect, but humans had something they could not calculate: the courage to be real, to let emotion show, and to face consequences without hesitation. The ambassador finally took a slow breath, acknowledging the truth of his words. "Humans do not bluff," she said. "Your anger, it is not ordinary." Arik leaned back slightly, letting the weight of his presence settle. He realized then that this was not just negotiation, it was demonstration. Humans could move situations not with force or trickery, but with honesty, with spirit, with courage. Aliens could fear weapons, fear war, but they feared honesty paired with emotional strength. The raw power of a human unwilling to hide what they truly felt. For a moment, silence filled the room. Arik's crew felt it too. The strange energy of a human being fully present, fully honest, fully aware of their own power. It was subtle yet undeniable. Something had shifted. Arik's heart remained steady, though his mind raced. This was the moment he had trained for. The moment where humanity's unique strength, its fearless honesty, would shine. The Valorians might be masters of logic and subtlety, but here now, a human had shown them a force they could not ignore. And in that quiet, tension-filled hall, Commander Arik Hale knew something that no one else had yet understood. This moment, this simple, honest expression of human emotion, would leave a mark on the galaxy. The tension in the conference hall was thick, almost like a living thing. Commander Arik Hale could feel it pressing against him, yet he remained calm, letting his presence fill the room. The Valorian delegation sat across from him, their four eyes flicking nervously from one human to another, their skin shimmering with faint ripples of uncertainty. Arik had never seen them like this, so cautious, so unsteady, and it gave him a strange sense of both thrill and responsibility. The negotiations continued, but something had shifted. The Valorians, who prided themselves on endless patience, were beginning to move faster, conceding minor points they would have normally debated for hours. Every time Arik spoke with honesty, with clarity and emotion, the alien's confidence faltered slightly. It was subtle at first. A quick glance exchanged between delegates, a tiny hesitation before they responded, but Arik noticed. He realized then what he had already suspected. Humans possessed a unique power in diplomacy that aliens could not comprehend. It was not advanced technology, nor clever strategy, nor even sheer numbers. It was the human spirit, the ability to show emotion, to express frustration, determination, and honesty without fear. The Valorians could handle logic, but raw, unguarded honesty? That unsettled them. That forced them to act. Arik leaned forward, his voice steady but firm. "We are here to find solutions, not to waste time. We will speak clearly. We will act honestly. And we expect the same from you." A flicker of color ran across the ambassador's skin, a deep indigo followed by lavender, and Arik knew the effect of his words. They were realizing something profound. Humans did not manipulate subtly. Humans did not pretend. Humans simply were. And in that there was power. The younger Valorian delegates exchanged nervous glances. One of them whispered something in their melodic, precise language, and the ambassador responded with a pause that seemed longer than normal. Arik's crew noticed it too. The hesitation, The tiny shift backward in posture, the faint shimmer of doubt. The aliens were no longer fully in control, and Arik could feel it. He did not exploit it cruelly. He simply continued to speak honestly, letting his emotions be seen. We understand your customs. We respect them. But we cannot operate in endless delay or fear. Humans act, we decide, and we accept the consequences. That is how we survive. That is how we thrive. The room went silent for a heartbeat. Then slowly the ambassador nodded. Her skin shimmered to a soft, calm blue. It was not defeat, it was acknowledgement. They were beginning to understand in the most basic terms why humans were different. Arik's heart swelled with quiet pride. It was not arrogance that filled him. It was the deep, almost spiritual awareness that humanity possessed something aliens could not measure or predict. Other species relied on rules, on strict logic, on avoidance of emotional extremes. Humans relied on one thing they could not control: honesty. And in moments like this, honesty became a weapon, precise and unstoppable. "Commander Hale," the ambassador said finally, her voice carrying a tremor of caution. "We acknowledge your presence, your directness. It is unusual." Arik allowed a small smile. "It is who we are. Humans are not easy to predict, not easy to control, and not easy to intimidate. But we are capable of cooperation if respect and honesty are present. That is the only path forward." For the next several hours, the negotiation began to shift in remarkable ways. The Valorians, who had been cautious and slow, began to propose solutions instead of delays. They admitted minor concessions they had previously hidden behind complex logic. They responded more quickly, and Arik noticed their skin shimmered less with tension and more with curiosity. Arik's crew watched in awe. They had trained for tactical advantage, for clever negotiation strategies. But this was something beyond strategy. It was something deeper, humanity itself shining in the simplest way possible. One word, one honest emotion, one simple declaration of intent, and the Valorians were moving faster than they ever had before in their history of negotiation. By the end of the day, Arik realized that this was more than diplomacy. This was a lesson, one that would echo through generations. Humans were not only clever, not only adaptable, they were emotionally unshakable, fearless in their honesty, and unstoppable when they refused to hide who they were. As the delegation prepared to rest for the night, Arik leaned back in his chair, letting a quiet satisfaction settle in his chest. The Valorians were no longer entirely calm. They were cautious. Yes, but they were beginning to respect, perhaps even fear, the power of raw human honesty. And in that quiet, glowing conference hall, Arik Hale understood something that no one could teach him. The strength of humanity was not in weapons, not in speed, not in numbers, but in the courage to be real, to be honest, to be fully, unapologetically human. The negotiation was no longer simply about trade or treaties. It was a demonstration, a lesson that humans could offer without raising a hand or firing a weapon. Their emotion, their honesty, their presence, it was enough. And the Valorians, for the first time, had seen it clearly. The next morning, the conference hall buzzed with quiet tension. Commander Arik Hale entered with a calm, measured step, though inside a spark of determination flared. Yesterday had shown him something remarkable. Aliens, even the most disciplined, were not immune to human honesty and emotion. Today he intended to see how far that advantage could reach. The Valorian delegation was already seated, their skin shimmering in pale hues of blue and lavender. They had not fully recovered from yesterday's display of human frankness. Arik noticed subtle differences, a hesitation in their movements, slight pauses before responding, and the occasional flicker of color that revealed doubt. Their legendary composure was fractured, and he intended to keep it that way, without cruelty, simply through the quiet force of truth. Arik cleared his throat and addressed the room. "We are here to finalize our discussions," he began, his voice calm yet commanding. "Yesterday we spoke openly. Today we will continue in the same way, honestly, directly, and without unnecessary delay. We have shared our intentions and now we expect clarity from yours." The Valorians paused. The ambassador's 4 eyes focused intently on him, trying to measure not only his words but his intent. Arik knew that in their culture hesitation equaled weakness, yet here, his very human presence made hesitation seem dangerous. For hours discussions went back and forth. But Arik had learned the lesson of yesterday. Honesty and directness were tools more powerful than any manipulation. When he spoke with conviction, expressing human emotion, frustration, determination, pride, the Valorians responded not with logic alone, but with careful adjustments, concessions, and subtle admissions. At one point, the ambassador raised a complex objection about resource distribution. Arik listened quietly, allowing the room to grow tense. Then, leaning slightly forward, he said, "I understand your concern, but let me be clear. We are not here to argue endlessly over minor details. We need solutions that work for both our species, and I will not let hesitation or overcaution prevent progress." The effect was immediate. The younger delegates shifted uncomfortably, their skin flickering darker shades of blue. The ambassador inhaled slowly, her 4 eyes flicking rapidly, betraying her inner turmoil. For the first time, Arik realized that a single human voice, calm yet honest, could guide the decisions of an entire alien council. Arik smiled faintly, though his expression remained serious. He was not boasting. He was simply being human. We are capable of compromise, of cooperation, of trust, but only if honesty is present. We will not waste time on games, and neither should you. The Valorians glanced at each other. Their shimmering skins rippled nervously. One of them spoke in their precise melodic language, and the ambassador paused before translating slowly for Arik. "Your directness, it is unsettling. It forces decisions," Arik nodded. He understood that this was not fear of humans as enemies, but something far deeper, fear of the unexpected, of the uncalculated. Humans did not hide their emotions. Humans did not pretend. Humans simply existed fully, with honesty as their weapon. By mid-afternoon, the tide had turned completely. The Valorians began to propose solutions they would have resisted before. They admitted minor concessions, adjusted trade routes, and clarified terms without the endless hesitation that had plagued the talks yesterday. Arik noticed that even their skin shimmered more steadily, a subtle acknowledgement of acceptance and respect. It was quiet, subtle, almost invisible to anyone untrained in alien behavior. But Arik understood. Humans had shifted the balance not through force, not through cleverness, but through courage. Courage to be honest. Courage to show frustration, determination, and impatience. Courage to stand fully human in front of a species that relied on control and calculation. At the end of the day, as the sun of the distant star filtered through the observation windows, the Valorian ambassador leaned back and gave a slow nod. Her skin glowed with soft violet, signaling calm acknowledgement. "Commander Hale," she said, her voice carrying respect now, "humans are unlike any species we have encountered. Your honesty, it is unpowerful." Arik allowed himself a quiet smile. It was not pride in victory alone, but in the realization that humanity's greatest strength lay not in technology, or numbers or weapons, but in the raw courage to be real. As the delegation prepared to conclude the day's session, Arik's mind lingered on the lesson he had demonstrated. Aliens could fear power, logic, or force, but what they feared most was the unyielding honesty of a human heart. A presence that refused to hide, to manipulate, or to pretend. And in that quiet, glowing hall, Commander Arik Hale knew one simple truth. Humans were not just capable of negotiation. Humans were capable of shifting the course of entire species, simply by existing fully, courageously, and honestly. Tomorrow would bring the final stage of agreement, but today had proven something extraordinary. Honesty, emotion, And courage were weapons more effective than diplomacy manuals, more effective than hesitation or subtlety. The Valorians had seen it, and they would not forget it. The next morning, Commander Arik Hale entered the conference hall with the quiet confidence of someone who understood his own strength. The Valorian delegation was already assembled, their skin shifting in pale blues and purples, but today the shimmer of uncertainty was stronger. Something had changed. The events of the previous day had left their mark. Arik could feel it immediately. The Valorians were hesitant, almost tense. Their precise movements were slower, their eyes flicking nervously, and the soft ripples of color across their skin revealed a new emotion. Fear. Not fear of humans as fighters, but fear of something far more subtle and unpredictable. The courage, honesty, and emotional presence of a human could unsettle even the most disciplined alien mind. Arik took a deep breath and spoke, voice calm yet firm, filled with controlled emotion. Yesterday we showed each other our intentions. Today I want clarity. We have been patient. We have been honest. Now it is time for you to do the same. The ambassador's four eyes widened slightly, and Arik noticed the faint violet shade deepening across her skin. Even she, who had maintained composure for decades, was visibly affected. The junior delegates exchanged glances, whispering in their melodic language. The subtle vibrations of the air around them carried tension that no human could see, but Arik could feel it as clearly as the hum of the ship's engines. For hours the negotiation continued. Every question Arik asked, every point he made was accompanied by his honest emotion. He did not hide frustration when necessary, nor did he suppress determination or pride. With every display of human courage, the Valorians responded more quickly, less cautiously, and sometimes with almost trembling compliance. It became clear to Arik why humans were feared across the stars. It was not because of weapons, fleets, or technology. It was because humans were unafraid to be fully themselves. Humans spoke truth plainly, acted with conviction, and refused to hide what they felt. Aliens could calculate, manipulate, and strategize, but they were unprepared for raw honesty delivered with emotional clarity. At one point, the ambassador questioned a minor clause in the treaty, her voice precise but trembling slightly. Arik leaned forward, letting his eyes meet hers. "We are not here to play games," he said softly yet firmly. "We are here to find solutions. You may doubt, hesitate, or calculate endlessly, but we will continue with honesty. That is who we are. That is our strength." The effect was immediate. The room went still. Even the junior Valorians, who had not spoken much, straightened nervously in their seats. Their skin shimmered rapidly, shades of blue darkening and lightening in jagged pulses. Arik felt a strange mixture of awe and satisfaction. This was not a show of power with weapons or strategy. It was a display of human spirit, and the Valorians were completely unprepared for it. Arik's voice softened, filled with quiet empathy. "I do not wish to frighten you. I do not wish to dominate you. I am showing you what humans are, what we truly are when we are honest. And it is not weakness. It is strength. A strength that cannot be calculated, predicted, or controlled." The ambassador inhaled slowly, her four eyes fixed on him. Her skin shimmered to a deep, steady indigo, a color signaling cautious respect. "Humans are unusual," she said carefully. "Your emotion, your honesty, it is powerful. It is unsettling." Arik allowed a faint, humble smile. "It is simply who we are. We do not hide what we feel. We act with honesty, courage, and determination. That is the only way humans survive and thrive, and it is why you cannot underestimate us." By midday, the Valorians had begun to make meaningful concessions. They proposed compromises they had previously avoided, clarified points without hesitation, and most importantly, showed signs of respect and caution. Their earlier pride and rigidity were tempered by a growing acknowledgement. Humans were not just clever, they were fearless, unpredictable, and unshakable in their truth. Arik's crew watched quietly, feeling a quiet pride in their species. The humans had not used intimidation, nor manipulation, nor clever tricks. They had simply been honest, brave, and fully present. That presence had shifted the balance of power in the room. The Valorians, masters of diplomacy for centuries, had experienced something no alien had fully understood before. The raw, unstoppable force of human emotion combined with courage. As the session drew to a close, the ambassador gave a slow, deliberate nod. Her skin shimmered gently, showing the complex mix of relief, respect, and lingering unease. "Commander Hale," she said softly, "humans are unlike any species we have encountered. Your courage, your honesty, it cannot be ignored." Arik allowed himself a moment of quiet satisfaction. He understood now why humans had survived countless challenges, faced dangers, and emerged victorious again and again. Their strength did not lie in tools, weapons, or technology. It lay in something far deeper: the courage to be real, to be honest, and to face the universe without pretense. And in that quiet, tension-filled room, Commander Arik Hale realized something extraordinary. Humanity was not just a species. Humanity was a force of nature, a force that could be respected, feared, and most importantly trusted, because humans were unafraid to show who they truly were. The conference hall was quiet, almost reverent. Commander Arik Hale stood at the center, his presence calm yet commanding. The Valorian delegation faced him, their four eyes flicking nervously, their skin shimmering with complex patterns that revealed a mixture of respect, caution, and lingering unease. What had begun as a negotiation had become something far greater: a lesson, a revelation, and a warning. Arik looked around the room, taking in the faces of his crew and the alien delegates. The treaty was nearly complete, agreements and compromises signed and acknowledged. But the real work, the real impact had already been made. The Valorians had witnessed something they had never truly faced before: a human unafraid to show emotion, to stand fully in their truth, to command respect not through fear or force, but simply through honesty and presence. He remembered the moments of the past 2 days, the frustration he had felt as proposals stalled, the simmering irritation that had finally broken the tension, the quiet power of declaring, "Now I'm really getting annoyed." That simple, human phrase had shifted the balance entirely. It was not the words themselves that carried the power. It was the truth behind them, the courage, and the unwavering presence of a human who refused to hide what he felt. The ambassador leaned forward slightly, her skin now a steady shade of deep violet. "Commander Hale," she said carefully, her voice carrying the weight of centuries of diplomacy, "humans, you are unlike any species we have encountered. Your honesty, your emotion, it is overwhelming. It is powerful beyond measure." Arik nodded quietly. "It is not meant to overwhelm. It is meant to show who we are. Humans do not hide our hearts. We do not pretend to be something we are not. We speak, we act, and we feel. That is our strength." The younger delegates shifted nervously, their four eyes darting to one another, their shimmering skins flickering in shades of anxious blue and soft lavender. They had been taught that control was power, that patience and calculation ruled every negotiation. But they had underestimated the human spirit. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but they were also unshakable when grounded in honesty. Arik allowed a small, gentle smile. He did not need to threaten. He did not need to raise his voice. He simply needed to exist fully as a human, with every ounce of emotion, courage, and integrity he could muster. That presence alone had changed centuries of alien expectation, bending their careful calculations and subtle strategies in ways they could neither fully predict nor resist. The ambassador sighed softly, her skin now a calm, steady lavender. "It is clear now," she said. "Aliens that have underestimated humans. Your presence, your directness, it is a force we cannot easily face." Arik's smile deepened faintly. He understood now what his ancestors had known instinctively. Humans were not just survivors, they were uncontainable. No rules, no logic, no cultural rigidity could limit a human who spoke their truth, and the galaxy would learn this lesson again and again as it had throughout history. He turned slightly toward his crew, who had watched in awe throughout the negotiation. Their pride was evident, but so was their understanding of a deeper truth. Humans had a weapon unlike any other: honesty, courage, and the refusal to hide who they were. That weapon could topple empires, change treaties, and leave even the most disciplined alien species unsettled. Cautious and deeply respectful, the ambassador rose, a formal gesture that carried the weight of her species' centuries-long history. "Commander Hale," she said slowly, "today, humans have shown us why caution, hesitation, and subtlety cannot match courage and honesty. Your species will be remembered." Arik nodded. The words settled around him like a quiet halo. He felt pride, yes, but also humility. Humans had survived countless trials, faced unimaginable odds, and continued to thrive, not because of superior weapons or technology, but because of a simple, undeniable truth. When humans spoke, when they felt, and when they acted with honesty, the universe could not ignore them. As the Valorians prepared to depart, a faint ripple of awe passed through the room. The delegates did not fully understand the full scope of what they had witnessed, but one thing was clear: humans were not just beings, they were forces of nature. And one simple phrase, spoken with truth and courage, could leave even the most careful alien species retreating in respect, caution, and awe. Now I'm really getting annoyed. Arik watched the Valorians leave, their skin shimmering nervously, their eyes alert and calculating but undeniably respectful. The treaty was complete, the negotiation successful, but the real victory was silent, invisible, and eternal. The galaxy had seen for the first time the unstoppable force of the human spirit. He turned back to the stars, letting a quiet smile touch his lips. Somewhere, deep in the universe, civilizations would whisper the lesson they had learned today. Underestimate a human at your peril. The heart, the honesty, the courage, these were weapons no alien could predict, no species could contain. And Commander Arik Hale knew, as the stars stretched endlessly before him, that this was only the beginning. The legend of humanity had just grown a little brighter, a little louder, and a little more impossible to ignore.